So today we're in the first 5 chapters of Joshua, and here we get yet another reminder that God is God. I love how the Lord makes the transition from the leadership of Moses to the leadership of Joshua. I mean, think about this. Moses was by far the greatest leader in the entire history of Israel. He had been used by God powerfully to lead Israel out of slavery in Egypt. And then God used him to lead them through the wilderness for 40 years, right up to the edge of the Jordan River before they crossed into the Promised Land. But now Moses is dead. And so it seems like there's a big leadership gap. I mean, what does Israel do now without their great leader? God just says, Joshua, my servant Moses is dead. So now you get moving and lead the people. I mean, it's almost like a by the way. And that's because it was never Moses who made it all happen. It was God. Moses was a great leader. He had lots of experience. He had great education. He had skills, but it wasn't those things that God used. The only thing that he ever used to assure Moses that his purposes would get accomplished through him was to promise him, I will be with you. And so with Joshua, he does the same thing. He doesn't say, hey, Joshua, I know Moses was great. Don't worry, I'll make you great too. He says, just as I was with Moses, I will also be with you. Just like I never failed Moses, I will not fail you, nor will I forsake you. You see, it's never about a great man of God. It's always about the great God who is with that man. It humbles me because it reminds me that God doesn't need my skills or my gifts and abilities. He doesn't need my education or my experience because it's none of those things that make anything work. It's God who makes it happen. He's the one who ministers through me. I just get to come along for the ride and I trust him and then I watch him work. And he tells Joshua in chapter 1 verses 7 to 8. And by the way, these verses have nothing to do with Joshua's individual goals or Joshua's personal plan or destiny or dreams. I want you to hear this. Joshua 1 verses 7 to 8, though it gets misquoted and misinterpreted by so many people, is all about God's calling on Joshua's life and God accomplishing through him God's purposes. We have to understand that. What he's saying is, my job is to be God. Your job is to trust and obey. And if you do, I will not fail to accomplish my purposes in your life and through your life. That's what he means by success and prosperity, that I will make sure that you are successful in the thing that I sent you to do for my purposes, for my glory, in you and through you. In chapter 2, God proves that he's God again. He uses Rahab, a prostitute, in order to protect his spies that he sent to check out the land of Jericho. I mean, he's God. He can use anybody he wants, right? And here's an interesting thing. That prostitute knew very clearly the thing that God wanted his people to know, and the thing that he wants you and I to know today. She says, hey, listen, we've heard what the Lord has done, and we know that the Lord is God. In chapter 3, the Lord dries up the Jordan River for that very reason. Listen, he says he did it for 2 reasons. Number 1, verse 10, he says, by this, when I do this, by this you will know that the living God is among you. Remember from Romans 1 and Genesis 3 how we said that when people stop acknowledging God as God, everything just falls apart? God knows that. And so he wants his people, before they enter the Promised Land, to remember and to know that he is God. But not just his people, he wants the whole world to know. That's the second reason why he dried up the waters of the Jordan. Chapter 4, verses 23 and 24, he says that I dried up the waters of the Jordan for you to cross, so that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty. See, God wants to give life to his people. He wants them to know him and to love him and to trust him. But he also wants all the peoples of the earth to know him and to trust him and to love him. And so he will not fail to make himself known both in your life and through your life in order to make that happen. And he will do that when we trust him and just let God be God.